Sometimes the football world witnesses the birth of a star. When an 18-year-old kid stepped onto the pitch in Rennes, France back in 2016, everyone thought the same thing. This kid is different. His name, Ousmane Dembélé. Every time he got the ball, a roar went through the stadium. He was tearing defenses apart with his pace, leaving opponents behind like puppets with his skills. The way he curved shots with his inside foot left keepers helpless. At that point, hardly anyone knew his name in Ligue 1, but within a couple of weeks, everyone in France was talking about Dembélé. In his first season, he scored 12 goals and 5 assists in 29 matches wearing the Rennes jersey. His performances against giants like Monaco, Lyon, and Marseille proved he wasn't just a flash in the pan, but a lasting light. Breaths were held in the stands, and every time the ball came to his feet, the question, "What's he going to do now?" echoed around. Because Dembélé made a difference not just with pace and technique, but with his unpredictability too. At just 18 years old, he was rising like a new sun over French football. And this light would soon cross borders and illuminate Europe as well. When he transferred to Borussia Dortmund, Europe's heart turned to him. At just 19, with his skills, assists, and goals, a new superstar was born. And everyone started asking the same question: is this the new Messi? When he stepped into Borussia Dortmund, he was only 19. But from the first minutes he stepped onto the pitch, nobody could say he was a rookie. Confident as if he'd been playing on that pitch for years. Brave as if he never felt the pressure from the stands. His stats in his first season in the yellow and black shirt were absolutely brilliant. 49 games, 10 goals, 22 assists. The youngest player with the most successful dribbles in the Bundesliga. A fearless warrior taking the stage on Champions League nights. Back then, he was one of the most critical assets in manager Thomas Tuchel's game plan. A speedstorm on one wing, a deadly partnership with Aubameyang on the other. Aubameyang made the runs. Dembélé carried the ball, setting up goals with a single pass. Their chemistry made Dortmund scary for teams both in the league and in Europe. But it wasn't just the numbers that made him special. When the ball came to his feet, the stadium's atmosphere would change. Fans got to their feet, and opposition defenders held their breath. Because nobody could predict what his next move would be. One moment he was cutting to the right, the next he was taking on 2 players at once and shooting at goal. He was like a magician on the pitch who could bend time. And perhaps the most unforgettable moment that season was the 2017 German Cup final. When the clock showed the 74th minute, Dembélé took the stage. He skillfully controlled the ball on the right side of the box, beat one defender in a step, and then finished past the keeper. That goal opened the door for Dortmund to beat Bayern 3-2 and lift the trophy. At just 19, he had become a hero who changed the club's fate. At that point, all of Europe had their eyes on him. Barcelona, Real Madrid, Manchester City, they were all on the line. But fate was calling him to Barcelona, and nobody knew. This transfer would be both the peak of a dream and the beginning of a nightmare. In the summer of 2017, the football world was shaken. When Neymar went to Paris with a record transfer, Barcelona were desperate. A huge gap had opened up in the team's attacking line. Desperation forced them to turn their eyes to that young star who had shone in France and was continuing to prove himself at Dortmund, Ousmane Dembélé. He had caught everyone's attention with his amazing performance in just his second season at Dortmund, and Barcelona decided to take a gamble on him. 145 million euros, one of the most expensive transfers of that time. That price carried not just a player, but also a club's future, the fans' hopes, and the focus of the media. But being crushed under that weight was inevitable for a young man who hadn't even turned 20 yet. Right in his first few games, fate struck him cruelly. Injury, muscle tears, tendon problems, endless recovery processes. The most valuable thing for a footballer is consistency, but Dembélé's career seemed written in interruptions, not continuity. 1 month on the pitch, 3 months in treatment. Every return was a spark of hope, and every re-injury was a deepening shadow. The press was brutal. Bad investment, glass boy, the most expensive flop in football history. The fans were impatient. The whistles coming from the stands were tearing the young player's confidence to shreds. And in the shadow of his teammates, Dembélé, who once tore up the pitches, became more and more withdrawn. The numbers were cold, but they screamed the truth. He missed a total of 65 games in his first 2 seasons. He only played 17 games in the 2017-18 season. Barcelona's most expensive signing was nowhere to be seen in the stats. At just 21, one of the fastest players to reach the top was also one of the fastest to hit rock bottom. The kid who everyone thought might be the new Messi was now having people wonder, can he ever get back on his feet? But this is the point that makes Dembélé's story different. Most footballers would have given up here. Most would have been crushed and disappeared under the weight of injuries, criticism, and endless pressure. Countless stories of lost talents in football history started exactly like this. But Ousmane Dembélé chose a different path, to fight. After the injuries, he was reborn not just on the pitch, but off it too. He worked one-on-one with special trainers, strengthening his muscles. He followed scientific programs to make his body more resistant to injury. He changed his diet, quit the nightlife, and increased his discipline. He narrowed his circle of friends and cleared his mind. And most importantly, he started believing in himself again. One of the biggest supporters of this change was Xavi, who took over at Barcelona in 2021. The legendary midfielder saw the unpolished gem in Dembélé and chose to trust him. Xavi put him on the pitch, saying, "You are the most special player in this team, just believe in yourself." The results came fast. Dembélé, just like in his old days, was leaving defenders helpless on the wing, feeding Lewandowski, Pedri, and Gavi with his crosses into the box. Every dribble got the crowd on their feet, and every assist sprinkled hope back over Camp Nou. The 2022-2023 season was truly a rebirth year for Dembélé. He produced 5 goals and 7 assists in 25 La Liga appearances. But his real contribution couldn't be contained in statistics. The key force that widened Barcelona's game and tore apart opposition defenses was back in action. And when Barcelona won the league title at the end of the season, there was a shining star lifting the trophy: Ousmane Dembélé. The player who was once called finished and mocked as a bad investment had risen from the ashes. Everyone realized one thing: Ousmane Dembélé was the hero of an unwritten story. In the summer of 2023, a new chapter opened in Dembélé's story. After years of injuries, ups and downs in Spain, his journey brought him back to his home country. This time, his destination was Paris. But this Paris wasn't the Paris of the teams he had faced in Ligue 1 years before. This was a Paris without Messi, without Neymar, a team that had lost its big stars and was looking for a new identity. PSG needed a new hero to regain its lost glory. And the club turned to France's own child, that talent who emerged from Rennes' streets and stepped onto the world stage: Ousmane Dembélé. But there was a critical name behind the scenes of this transformation: Luis Enrique. The manager who saw that unextinguished spark inside Dembélé from his Barcelona days was the right person for him to shine again. Enrique had always believed in the young star's potential, even saying during his time at Barcelona, "If injuries allow, he can be one of the most special talents in the world." And now they were on the same team again. On one side, a PSG rebuilding to get to the top of Europe. On the other, Dembélé, who wanted to rebuild his career. And at their intersection, a hopeful journey promising a brand new start. Luis Enrique had known Dembélé since their time at Barcelona. He was one of the few who still saw the fire in the young star, who had been overshadowed by injuries back then. When he arrived to Paris, his plan to rekindle this light was ready. Enrique didn't see Dembélé as just a winger stuck on the line. He gave him freedom to roam on both right and left, even in the center. This freedom paralyzed opposing defenses. In the 2024-2025 season, Dembélé created threats in PSG's attack with 34% through the middle, 42% on the right, and 24% on the left. This variety freed PSG from one-dimensionality. Enrique gave Dembélé not just tactics but also confidence. In frequent one-on-one conversations, he broke his mental chains by saying, "Mistakes don't define you, but your reactions do." When he played alongside Mbappé, they became a nightmare for opposition defenses. Dembélé's 16 assists were mostly set up for Mbappé's goals. The duo reminded people of the modern-day Henry Pérez chemistry. and most importantly, on the Champions League stage. Especially against Manchester City in the quarterfinal, Dembélé's performance of 1 goal and 1 assist made him the man of the match. That night, he shone not just as a star, but as a leader. In the summer of 2025, news broke that shook the heart of Paris. Kylian Mbappé was leaving Paris Saint-Germain. Mbappé's departure, who had been the undisputed face of the team, the flag of France, and the symbol of the club for years, wasn't just a transfer. It was the end of an era. The lights of the Parc des Princes seemed to dim for a moment. Fans were sad, and the football media was full of doubt. Who will PSG be now? But the answer emerged quickly. The spotlight turned to a single name, Ousmane Dembélé. Dembélé, who had been in the background next to Mbappé for years and was sometimes seen as a supporting player, was now at the center of the stage. He was no longer just a winger who set up assists for Mbappé's runs. He was now the leader. When the 2025-2026 season kicked off, this change happened before everyone's eyes. Dembélé made his leadership spirit felt both on and off the pitch. It wasn't just his feet that drove the team forward, but his confidence. PSG's game plan revolved around him. Opponents now had only one way to stop Paris: stop Dembélé. The stats from the first 10 league games proved this transformation. 7 goals and 6 assists, a direct contribution in almost every match. 41% of PSG's attacks came from him. He averaged 3.8 successful dribbles and 2.7 key passes per match. He reached the top of Ligue 1 in entering the penalty box with the ball. The only name the fans shouted at the Parc des Princes was Dembélé. Every dribble, every pass, every goal was growing in waves through the stands. The player once shadowed by injuries, said to waste his potential, was now carrying an empire's flag. Paris saw the post-Mbappé gap not as a loss, but as an opportunity. Because the story of this new era would be written by Dembélé's leadership. The 2024 European Championship was a kind of rebirth for Ousmane Dembélé. When he stepped onto the pitch for France, it was as if a heavy burden had been lifted from a player who had faced years of criticism. His dribbling, quick breaks, and the dynamism he brought to his team. A wave of excitement rose in the stands, saying, "Dembélé is back." Even though France didn't win the trophy at the end of the tournament, Dembélé was certainly one of the winners. But the real big stage began with PSG's Champions League run. Paris wanted to end their long wait for the trophy they had chased for years. And this time, a French kid was at the heart of the story. PSG finally made history. The dream of years came true, and the club won its first ever Champions League title. And the brightest star of that historic run was Ousmane Dembélé. The season's stats were already setting him up for the Ballon d'Or stage. Double-digit goals and assists in Ligue 1. 8 goals and 6 assists in the Champions League, a leader stepping up in crucial moments. Top of Europe for successful dribbles. One of the season's highest averages for key passes. The football world slowly started to accept one thing. The young man once called a glass boy and labeled a flop was now standing at the door of football's biggest individual prize. And then came the moment. When the Ballon d'Or nominees were announced, Ousmane Dembélé's name was shining on the list. This wasn't just a nomination. This was the crowning of a man's journey to the top, a man who fought against years of injuries, disappointments, and mockery. This was proof that those who fight even when they fall can finally reach where they deserve to be. Now the nights in Paris were lit up not just by the lights of the Eiffel Tower, but by the glimmer of Ousmane Dembélé with the Champions League trophy. And the world was whispering a new truth. The road to the Ballon d'Or runs through the heart of Paris, and that road now belongs to Dembélé. Ousmane Dembélé's story reminds us of a very simple but equally deep truth. Talent can take you to the top, but character keeps you there. His journey has been one of football's most dramatic roller coaster rides. One day the world's most expensive young star, the next a prisoner of injuries. One day called the next Messi, the next branded as football history's biggest disappointment. But this is exactly where true champions stand apart. Because Dembélé got back up every time he fell to the ground. He strengthened not just his muscles, but his mind too. He improved not just his game, but his spirit as well. For him, this journey was a rehearsal not just for football, but for life itself. Today, as his name rings out at the Parc des Princes, you can see the reflection of a warrior, not just a footballer in the eyes of the fans. Because Dembélé's story is really all of our stories. Life knocks us all down. But the real question is, will you stay down when you fall? Or will you get up, dust yourself off, and start walking again? Ousmane Dembélé was once the lost kid. Today, he's a reborn legend. His journey tells us this: falling might be fate, but getting up is a choice. This isn't just a football story. It's the story of never giving up. So what do you think? Can Dembélé maintain this incredible form and win the Ballon d'Or again? Drop your thoughts below. If you like this video, make sure to subscribe and like the video.